Good afternoon, everybody. It's May 31, 2025 on Saturday. I hope everybody's doing well. It's Lorraine, Alternative Homesteading. And I asked ChatGPT about theft by deception. Now, this is a legal term. I actually used it in New Jersey against the Manalapan Police Department when I filed a complaint against them. And then, ironically, of course they ignored it. But then, in all of their future police blotters, they were using the terminology theft by deception. So I guess I taught them something. They just didn't use it effectively when they were reporting my crimes. So anyway, this is a beautiful little, like a crayon painting by Mary King. I found her on eBay. It's dated 2021, and it is a crow. And we all know that crows like to steal things, right? So let's go over theft by deception, which is a legal concept recognized in most states, including Kentucky and Alabama. And the reason ChatGPT is mentioning Kentucky and Alabama because I've been having conversations about Kentucky and about Jessica in Alabama. So now whenever I'm asking a question, I'm receiving information about Kentucky and Alabama, which I think is interesting, but it's good because now I'm getting extra information for Jessica as well. It's a form of criminal fraud and is defined as intentionally obtaining someone else's property, money, assets, services, or rights through deceit, lies, or misrepresentation. The definition of theft by deception occurs when a person knowingly misleads another to gain something of value, and this can involve lying about a material fact. Like those sheriff incident reports. When I reported my cat's building being broken into and my cats being harmed, and instead they wrote animal nuisance and called the Kentucky State Police that I lost a friggin' cat. Yeah. Lying about a material fact, theft by deception, creating or reinforcing a false impression, including of law, value, intention, or state of mind. So that could also involve the slander campaign that goes on with your neighbors, whispering behind your back, lying to people. Failing to correct a false impression they know the victim believes. Preventing the victim from acquiring important information. That's like filing a public records request and not receiving it, or receiving it and it's empty. Selling or transferring property they don't have a right to sell. The key elements required to prove theft by deception. To prove the charge, typically the following must be shown. The intent to deceive. The perpetrator knowingly used deceit or misrepresentation. The deception actually occurred. The victim was misled or given false information. Property was taken. The victim gave up property or a right based upon that deception. Wrongful gain. The accused benefited and the victim suffered a loss. Examples of theft by deception: falsifying medical or legal documents to gain guardianship over an adult. Selling someone else's property as if it were your own. Pretending to offer a service you never intended to provide. Which is like a contractor scam. That's sort of like Joe or Jonathan Plummer, who's a painter back in New Jersey, who I paid almost $4,100 to because he claimed that he had an investigator that I would be hiring to perform an investigation as to the criminal activities on my property. Instead, he lied. I found out he's related to one of the Manalapan cops, and he stole $4,100. All the proof, canceled checks. using false identities or credentials to obtain benefits or property, convincing someone they owe money they actually don't owe. So now ChatGPT goes on to, how is this relevant to Jessica's case? If someone, for instance, her mother or others, used false statements, forged medical records, or created a misleading narrative to have Jessica wrongfully declared mentally incompetent, obtain guardianship to control her life, finances, or estate, have her forcibly institutionalized and medicated without merit, then theft by deception may apply, especially if they gain financially or materially, they receive control over her assets or benefits, and they exploited the false statements to influence the court or medical professionals. So I need to send this to Jessica. Now, Kentucky and Alabama law notes. In both Kentucky and Alabama, theft by deception is criminalized under general theft statutes. It's typically charged as a misdemeanor if the value involved is low, and a felony if significant assets, property, or freedom are taken. And in here in Kentucky, if it's $500 or more. $500 or more, theft, it would be considered a felony. Theft by deception, sort of like that criminal that lives diagonally up the block here, that stole my gate, stole the very first gate, and then stole 2 auto chassis, vintage auto chassis. Theft by deception. Oh, and he says, well, the law told him he can't return them. So the law is allowing you to engage in criminal conduct? Sorry, guy, it's a felony if significant assets, property, or freedom are taken. The criminal code language might vary slightly, but both states define this kind of theft to include intentionally obtaining control over the property of another by deception with intent to deprive. So ChatGPT is so helpful. Would you like help reviewing legal statutes from Kentucky or Alabama that apply specifically to Jessica's situation, or possibly assistance outlining how the deceptive actions might have played out in her case for use in legal filing? And of course I said yes. Spit it out. Part 1, Jessica's situation in Alabama. Possible legal violations. If Jessica is being held in a psychiatric facility without legitimate medical basis, based on false statements by a third party, her mother or doctor, and someone else is seeking guardianship or controlling her financial assets, this may constitute theft by deception, misrepresentation to control her rights, unlawful involuntary commitment, fraud upon the court, if false information was submitted in guardianship proceedings, and a violation of civil rights under 42 U.S. Code Section 1983, deprivation of rights under color of law. And then ChatGPT says, if you want, I can help you draft a formal criminal complaint to the Alabama Attorney General or state-level oversight bodies for investigation, which I need to ask Jessica if that's okay to do. Part 2, ChatGPT says, your situation in Kentucky. You're describing, and now mind you, I didn't mention anything else to ChatGPT. This is its memory from weeks ago, okay? This is pretty good. I've hired lawyers I've paid $300-400 an hour that don't remember these details. Part 2, you're describing real estate property mobbing, a systemic harassment to force a property owner out, animal cruelty or harm to pets, property damage and vandalism, false or altered police reports by the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, legal concepts potentially involved, theft by deception if false claims are used to dispossess you, official misconduct by the sheriff or deputies, conspiracy to violate civil rights under 18 U.S.C. Section 241, deprivation of rights under the color of law 42 U.S.C. Section 1983, animal cruelty statutes, harassment and stalking. Next step suggestions. Document everything. Timestamp logs, photos, videos, incident reports, vet bills, eyewitness accounts. Request the blotter logs under Kentucky Open Records Act, KORA, to prove falsification. Draft a formal complaint to the Kentucky Attorney General, Russell Coleman. Bypass the sheriff. Write to the Kentucky State Police. This is ChatGPT telling me, bypass the sheriff. Go to the Kentucky State Police. And then the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. ChatGPT is so helpful. Do you want help drafting a FOIA, open records request to obtain unredacted blotter logs and 911 transcripts? How about a sample civil rights complaint template naming both theft by deception and official misconduct? How about a structured document outlining the patterns of harassment and deception that could be submitted to a journalist, legal aid, or federal investigator? Let me know which direction you'd like to go in first. And ChatGPT says, thank you for the update. That's very serious, and both situations may involve coordinated abuse of authority and theft by deception under different legal angles. So there you have it, theft by deception. And let's see, and then I'll just read a little bit about the Kentucky law here about defining theft by deception. In Kentucky, it's outlined under KRS 514.040. It occurs when individual intentionally obtains property or services through deception, such as creating or reinforcing a false impression about law, value, intention, or another's state of mind. It also includes withholding information that would affect someone's judgment. The statute includes scenarios involving non-material falsities or exaggerations, differentiating criminal acts from mere salesmanship. The criteria for charges. Charging someone with theft by deception requires evidence that the accused knowingly engaged in deception with the intent to unlawfully acquire property or services, like stealing my gate across the street and 2 vintage auto chassis on my property without my knowledge. It must also be shown that the victim relied on the false representation, influencing their decision, like, yes. For instance, if a seller knowingly misrepresents a car's condition and the buyer relies on this misrepresentation, charges may result. The context, such as whether the deception involved a false impression regarding law or value, also plays a role in determining charges. Somebody is honking the horn out there, so I'm going to sign off for now and leave a comment down below.